Hello dear students, our today's lesson is connected with health. And the topic of today's lesson is how drugs are studied. It's a very interesting topic because most of the people don't know that it takes a long time before the drug is approved, before it goes from the laboratory to the chemists. So it's not a very quick process. And from this lesson you will know what steps are needed for the drug to go from the laboratory to the chemists. Now let's first of all look at the words and match them to their definitions. The first word, absorb. Its definition we can find with the letter E, means take in. For example, the sponge absorbs water or soil absorbs water. Second word, alleviate. D, to lessen, ease, for example, to alleviate pain. Ascertain. O, to determine, find out. Chronic. L, long-lasting. Combat. S, fight against. Culture. P, the growing of organic materials in a laboratory setting. So this is not culture connected with tradition, as you have seen. This is a material grown in a laboratory setting. Deem. H, believe, judge. Desirable. T, wanted, worth having. Enhance. A, to improve. Fraction. B, a small part. Interval. Q, the period between two times or events. Investigation. M, a study. Manufacture. C, to produce. Monitor. I, to watch, observe. Outcome. F, result. Recur. K, happen or occur again. Substance. R, material. Target. J, to focus on. Theoretical. N, abstract, based on theory. Toxic. G, poisonous. How drugs are studied. It takes years and sometimes decades for a drug to move from the theoretical stage to the pharmacy shelf. Of the thousands of drugs under investigation at any one time, only a small fraction will produce a desired result without unacceptable side effects. So as we understand from this paragraph, it takes a long time, sometimes decades. As you know, decade means 10 years. It can take 10 years, 20 years, or even more for a drug to move from theoretical stage. So first of all, doctors have, investigators, some researchers have a theory, and then they try to put this theory into practice, and it takes long time before the drug goes to the pharmacy shelf. And of thousands of drugs, there can be thousands of drugs under the investigation, but only a small fraction, only few of them, only a small part will produce the desired effect without unacceptable side effects. You know that the drugs can also have side effects, and those drugs which have unacceptable side effects, of course they will not go to the pharmacy shelf. Now paragraph B. First, scientists target a step in the disease process where they believe a drug can have an effect. Then they manufacture compounds or take them from organisms such as viruses and fungi and test them in laboratory cultures. Once scientists isolate a chemical that produces a desirable effect, they analyze its structure and alter it as necessary to enhance the outcome. So what is the first step? First of all, scientists target a step. They try to find out the steps which they will follow in this process. And they believe that at the end the drug will have an effect. So first of all, they manufacture compounds. As we have learned, manufacture means produce compounds. They produce compounds, or they take them from organisms such as viruses and fungi, and they test them in the laboratory cultures. Then they isolate the chemical that produces a desirable effect, analyze its structure, and then alter, it means change if necessary, in order to get the desired outcome, in order to improve the outcome. The next step involves testing the drug in animals. Scientists look at how much drug is absorbed into the bloodstream, how it distributes to different organs, how quickly it is excreted or leaves the body, and whether it has any toxic effects or byproducts. Researchers usually test at least 2 animal species because the same drug may affect species differently. So from this paragraph we understood what is the next step. The next step is that the researchers test the drug on animals. Why do they test? Because they want to see how this drug is absorbed in the bloodstream and how it is distributed to different organs. And after, how it is excreted, it means how it leaves the body. And maybe it has got some toxic events or byproducts. And researchers usually test not 1, but at least 2 animal species, because the same drug can have different can affect different species differently. That's why they test at least on 2 animals. Paragraph D. If a chemical passes laboratory and animal testing and is deemed appropriate to analyze in human volunteers, it is ready for clinical trials. Researchers follow a protocol that describes who may participate in the study, tests and procedures to follow, the length of the study, and outcomes to be measured. Drug trials may focus on treating a disease, preventing a disease from occurring or recurring, or enhancing the quality of life for people living with incurable chronic conditions. So, what is the next step? After they have tested the drugs on animals, they start testing it on people. First of all, on volunteers. And they need to, first of all, to decide on what kind of people will take part, will participate in the test, how long the procedure will take, the length of the study in general, and what outcomes to expect. And then they focus on treating a disease, on preventing a disease from occurring or recurring, and enhancing, again, improving the quality of life of people who live with incurable chronic conditions. There are 4 phases for clinical trials. The first 3 phases study whether the drug is effective and can be safely administered to patients, and the 4th phase evaluates long-term safety and use once the drug is on the market. So altogether there are 4 phases of clinical trials. The first 3 phases, during the first 3 phases, the researchers try to find out if the drug is effective or not, and they are tested on patients. And the fourth phase evaluates long-term safety. They investigate it for a long time. And actually, we are all participants because we go to the drugstore, we buy that drug, and during the long period, the researchers, the creators of this drug, they observe what effects does it have on people. The first phase, clinical trials, test the drug in small groups of healthy volunteers, fewer than 100, to ascertain its safety and the appropriate dose range. These studies last for 6 months, from 6 months to 1 year. So in phase 1 of testing on people, they choose healthy volunteers, and there are fewer than 100 of them, fewer than 100 people are tested, and they try to ascertain, to find out if this drug is safe or not, and they try to determine the appropriate dose range. And these kinds of studies last from 6 months to 1 year. Phase 2 clinical trials test several hundred volunteers to determine how effectively the drug combats the disease being studied. These trials continue to evaluate safety, side effects, and optimal dose. Phase 2 studies also last for 6 months, from 6 months to 1 year. So as we have understood, in the second phase, several hundreds of volunteers are tested, and they try to determine how effectively the drug combats the disease that is being studied. And they try to evaluate the safety, again its side effects, optimal dose, and it also lasts from 6 months to 1 year. Phase 3 trials test thousands of volunteers for several years, with researchers closely monitoring study participants at regular intervals. These studies typically compare the drug under investigation with a control, either a drug known to cure or alleviate a specific disease, or, if one does not exist, a substance that has no medicinal effects, known as a placebo. Phase 3 trials are typically blind studies. Participants do not know which drug they are receiving. Or double-blind studies, neither participants nor researchers know which drug an individual is receiving until the trial is completed. So as we understood, in phase 3, thousands of volunteers are being tested, and they are being tested for several years, and the researchers closely monitor them at regular intervals. And then they compare their investigation with the control. Either the drug is able to alleviate or cure a specific disease or not, or there are no medicinal effects known as placebo. And they also use blind studies when participants do not know which drugs they are receiving. And double-blind studies, neither the participants nor researchers know which drug is being received. Once a drug passes the first 3 phases and is found to be safe and effective, drug companies may apply for the right to market the product. After a drug is approved and on the market, phase 4 trials may investigate longer-term effects in different groups of patients, such as the elderly, or use the medication for different conditions, such as using a cancer drug to treat AIDS. So, as the drug has passed 3 phases, now we can find this drug in the markets, in the chemists, because it has been approved to be safe, and the companies may have applied for the right to market the product. and after it has been approved and is on the market, phase 4 trials may investigate longer-term effects. They start to investigate it on a long term, and they try to find out the effects in different groups of patients, such as the elderly people, or maybe pregnant women, or children, or adults. So these investigations take longer time. Now let's look how these words, the new words, are used in different parts of speech. First of all, the noun absorption. Let's look how it is used in the sentence. As part of their research, scientists look at the absorption of a drug into the bloodstream. So look at the absorption. The verb form is absorb and the noun form is absorption. So as a verb, it is used as absorb. The body absorbs some drugs very quickly. The body absorbs. And its adjective form is absorbent. Cotton makes a good cleaning material because it is so absorbent. The next word, desire. Its noun form is desire. The desire to help others attract many people to medical professions. The desire. As a verb, it has the same form, desire. Patients desire drugs that will treat their conditions effectively. Adjective, desirable. The most desirable type of drug is one that is effective and has no side effects. So the most desirable type, adjective, desirable. And the adverb form is desirably. The drug in the investigation had desirably few side effects. So had desirably few side effects. The next word, investigation. Its noun form is investigation, as I mentioned. The investigation of a potential new drug costs a great deal of money and takes a long time. The investigation. Again, the second form of investigation is investigator, but this is a person who investigates. The investigator submitted a report about the crime. The investigator. Its verb form is investigate. Researchers may investigate several possible uses of a new drug. May investigate. It's a verb. And its adjective form, investigative. An investigative report showed the drug to be ineffective in fighting the disease. Investigative report. Theory is a noun form. The scientists set up the study to test the theory. Its verb form is theorize. Scientists theorize that a substance will have a certain medical effect, and then they set up a research study. Its adjective form is theoretical. Ideas are theoretical before they are tested. Its adverb form is theoretically. It was a good idea theoretically, so they decided to test it. It's an adverb form. Adverb form. Noun, toxin. Some substances can release toxins into the blood. The second noun form is toxicity. Potential drug toxicity is a part of every study. Its adjective form is toxic. Part of drug research involves testing for toxic effects. And its adverb form is toxically. If one drug reacts toxically with another, you cannot take them together. Reacts toxically. You need to match the correct form of the word to these sentences. You must use these words in sentences. in its correct form. So investigation, investigator, or investigate, and other words. So the word culture has three meanings. The first meaning, culture, is the growing of material in a laboratory setting. The second meaning, a shared system of beliefs, customs, and language. And the third meaning is the arts. Now the first sentence. It is always interesting to learn about the culture of another country. Here it has the meaning of customs, language, beliefs. A clinic might use a culture from the patient to diagnose a disease. Here it has this meaning, which is mentioned in a growing of organic material in a laboratory setting. Because of their museums, theaters, and libraries, cities have a lot more to offer in terms of culture than small towns do. Here it has a meaning of arts. Please do listening exercise. Listen and fill in the words that you can hear in the listening part. Writing. So in this essay, you need to use 250 words. Modern medical science has made it possible to combat many diseases. This is one reason that people are living longer lives than they did in the past. Discuss the effects this might have on a society. So don't forget to divide your essay into paragraphs. In the first paragraph, write the introduction, paraphrase these sentences, and mention what you are going to write in the next paragraphs. In the second paragraph, write how modern medicine made it possible to live longer lives. In the third paragraph, write what effect does it have on society. You can mention what effect does it have on the economy of the countries. And conclusion with summary and your own opinion. And here are some speaking questions. A lot of money is spent on investigating drugs. Do you think it is desirable to spend so much money on developing new drugs? Or should more money be spent on other areas of healthcare? So, as it is mentioned here, a lot of money is spent on investigating drugs. Do you agree with this situation? Or do you think that this money should be spent on other areas of healthcare? What do you think are some of the most important health issues to target? So, in your opinion, what are the most important health problems nowadays? What do you think is the best way to combat common but potentially dangerous diseases such as influenza? How do you think is it more effective to combat influenza? Share your opinion, make a video, and send to me.